So it's like, saying in Australia, I'm going to hire one person. If this doesn't work out, I'm never going to hire him again.
Correct.
It's ridiculous. Or a
Yeah.
farmer planting one seed and going, I'm just going to water this one seed. Yeah. And then we're just not going to grow corn ever again if that seed doesn't do. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's a strategy. As you can see there, Tamara, before I get too distracted, because your conversations are going to fall around outsourcing and offshoring, but our big focus has always been, and what makes us different is something that we do called workforce engineering. So it's not just about a transactional service, it's about looking at a business's entire org chart or accountability chart and working out where the constraints are, and then helping them with that. And sometimes that's with offshore solutions, and sometimes there's just a lot of education about a better way to map their workforce.
Is there a difference in terminology, Anthony, between outsourcing and offshoring, or is it just interchangeable?
Well, it is interesting because some people have experience with one, the other, or both. Because you could say, well, like for you and I, we live in Brisbane, and we outsource our marketing to a marketing agency or an accounting firm that does our accounting or marketing with us. And that technically is outsourcing. It's not being done inside your org chart. So that is outsourcing.
Yep.
As well.
So in terms of offshoring, because people may use that, is that simply that the staff are not in Australia, so to speak? Is that the easiest way around it?
Yeah, so that's why we have offshoring as a bit of a secondary label when we explain it as well, because we say clearly we are going to outsource that away from your traditional business and we're going to offshore it. But then it gets a bit not tricky, but the reality is that for us anyway, our focus is making sure again that these, the staff that we find, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 20, 100 staff, whatever your organization, the client's organization needs, they are going to be employed by us, sure, but they're going to sit inside the client's businesses, their org chart, their accountability chart, attend the weekly meetings, attend the huddles, etc. Okay, so there's a few things there. So first of all, the phrase VA, which of course stands for virtual assistant, still persists even somewhat with clients of ours, which is crazy because again, what we're just talking about is a virtual assistant. What if your social media marketing manager or your accountant or your bookkeeper also aren't in the office and they're virtual? Then can we just drop the V and just call them your assistant? So there's a bit there. In terms of pricing, I thought I would look at some of our staff, both our internal staff and also our client staff, because it's the same job market, and look at that. And I think $5 an hour is a little bit light on, but often, we talked about it before. We talked about outsourcing, which could be you, or the client and you, depending, finding someone or an external agency to do a body of work. Now that could be onshore. We talked about that. But of course, there is the opportunity to offshore through businesses like Upwork is a really common one, for example, because I'm here to educate and add value to your audience, not just to speak about people partners, but they'll intertwine because that's our world. Now, with that, that's where, you might have someone just like Fiverr in Australia or Airtasker. You just need you need a job done. Maybe it's done in Russia, maybe it's done in Ukraine. Interesting examples, but that did happen before, some of the realities of our world today, or whether it be Philippines or India, etc. It was a job. Now, of course, that has challenges because that person, there's different time zone issues. They're not part of your organization. They don't attend your meetings. They don't share your values. They're just going to do a body of work. And of course, they're doing this at any time of the day or night with no real management. Of course, they're handling the work of 10, 20, 30, 100 other people. So $5 is a bit light on. But somewhere around $9 to $11 an hour is probably reasonable. So as we say, in Australia, you can hire 5 offshore staff members through us for the price of 1 Australian salary. So that's normally about a 5-to-1 ratio, saving about 70%.
thing, I think, of taking jobs away from Australians. What's your thought and comment around that?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me because a lot of what I do is educate and speak at events, and often those are done clearly in onshore companies. So, Singapore, Australia, Canada, North America. And so naturally I'm speaking to the onshore people that may be fearful. And a lot of what I spend the time about is the fact that when you workforce engineer a company, which is what we do, the focus is not just about replacing roles that could be done offshore. The focus is really about where those constraints are. Now, if you look at the constraints of not only managers and leaders, but also certain, roles that have to be done onshore. So whether, in the RTO world, for example, we could speak about trainers, for example, face-to-face training anyway. All industries, you could talk about face-to-face salespeople. So there's roles that have to be done onshore, but whether they're those sort of skilled talent roles that have to be done onshore or the leaders and the managers that are onshore, what we find is that constraints exist because there's parts of their job that are $6 an hour tasks instead of $100 an hour tasks. So what we find is that what we do in particular doesn't take jobs away from Australians. It makes Australians more fulfilled and happy because yes, there's going to be roles that can be done as they exist onshore and be moved offshore. But in a lot of cases, we're going to be looking to deconstruct the existing onshore roles, take away all the rubbish, emails or call notes, CRM or admin, because leaders and managers and skilled talent onshore roles need to be operating in their skills and passion zones. They shouldn't be focused on things that is in someone else's skills and passion zones, which could be offshored for, I say $6 an hour, that's a bit of a USism. So let's say, an Australianism, maybe $9 to $11.
Excellent. All right. So hopefully that dispels just, a little bit, because I think context is important and there can be so many throwaway lines when we're talking about this. So that's why I thought we'd have a look at it. Now, this lends into your point of difference. So to let everyone else know, my understanding is, and again, it's horses for courses, but the difference that I've seen with people partners, and Anthony and I just met, through LinkedIn and stuff like that. But the difference was rather than, okay, we're just going to get a virtual assistant to do X, right? Is that Anthony and I think very similarly about how you build a business, where it's really looking at the business as a whole and thinking about how can we get everyone working in what I call their sweet spot, doing the work that they love, that they're really good at, 80% of every single day, which is what you just touched on, right? And that includes the business owner, because there's always going to be stuff that you don't like doing. But if we can minimize that as much as possible and get them in that absolute flow and go, I love doing this sort of stuff, then life is a whole lot better. They love coming to work. We've got a much better culture. And the team actually wants to work together and they want to share things and stuff like that, which to me is what we need to be looking at. And whether that's a business, just you, like me, where I get some help in those areas where I go, don't want to do that social media stuff. It's thinking about that. So whether the business is just you or whether you've already got a team and you're looking to build or you want to rejig things, that's why I think this is a great way to look at any business model, regardless of whether you're then going to say, okay, well, let's look at how we can outsource some of those other things, because this should be the strategy regardless.
So it's like, saying in Australia, I'm going to hire one person. If this doesn't work out, I'm never going to hire him again.
Correct.
It's ridiculous. Or a farmer planting one seed and going, I'm just gonna water this one seed. And then we're just not gonna grow corn ever again if that seed doesn't do. That's ridiculous. So it's a strategy. So that's exactly right. As you can see in the slide that you've shared, that is our focus, is we educate people around the roles they know they need, which of course would be the things that they can already see in their org chart. Maybe they're filled already onshore, or maybe they're not. So that could be a bookkeeper, a CPA, an assistant. It could be
graphic designer, maybe something.
Graphic designer, copyright. It could be any of these things that exist in their brain, whether they're filled or not. And then, of course, where the magic can happen, but you can't do this onshore, is then you look at segmenting and elevating, delegating away from the onshore talent or onshore leader so that they stay in their strength and passion zones, and we let the lower order grunt tasks sit in the passion zones of people that love admin, love data entry, love organizational work, and of course we can get that for 70% cheaper. So it's a strategy, not a tactic.
So there's this thing I'm hearing about AI agents, that can extrapolate tasks and all different things. Of course, once you fit in your own procedures and everything like that, so that's a bit of a given. But are you able to talk just a little bit about that, of whether that's going to impact on having a person?
Yeah. So look, like any business, AI needs to be involved in what we do. And currently, we've got a number of projects that we're working on that AI does need to feature in. But it's not to replace all of our core processes and all of our people. It's quite the opposite. It's to enhance it. So I think the easiest thing that I've always said is that whether it's onshore or offshore, AI will just amplify the speed and ability for people to do good work. So now, whether an organization has its best staff onshore or offshore, that's another question, because the best staff are the ones that are going to be using the AI to deliver the results. So, our belief system is, AI is not going to stop offshoring, it's not going to stop onshoring. It is just going to amplify our ability to do good work. And of course, if your audience are not looking into it, they probably need to, but it is still an emerging space where people can get lost. So I'm a little bit like, I don't like to welcome AI into many conversations, to be honest with you. If a business owner or an entrepreneur is not typically innovative or is not typically tech savvy, they need to get to it, but they probably need to still focus on their traditional businesses. And of course, offshoring is a great step to still work with people, not technology. And then what we're now seeing is that AI is now being integrated into more and more of the user platform. So when we started looking at it, because my business partner in particular is a self-described nerd, he calls himself that. So it's not me calling him that. He's quite sporty, but he calls himself that. So he is often on the cutting edge. But the fact is, when we were looking at early stuff, it was going to cost us millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to implement it. And then all of a sudden, months went by, and then, it's now incorporated into the Microsoft 365 suite. So most people don't realize when you use Word or Excel, AI is now featured. So it's becoming more and more accessible for people. So I think it's still a little bit of watch this space, but it's not going to solve the fact that you need real people in your organization.